Hello, it's week 19 of the greatest 100 artists of all time. Some of the acts I've chosen have been predictable superstars, the people you always find in his lists, Beatles, Springsteen, etc. Some have been totally obscure, bands who barely anybody else has heard of. American Aquarium, Anathema, so far. But today's choice is a group who aren't absolutely obscure. They had a certain level of success, but you never find them in lists like this, though they're not one of the most remembered groups of all time. Carter, the Unstoppable Sex Machine. As you can guess from their name, they never took themselves too seriously. And it's perhaps because they had a sense of humour, they didn't get all the respect their music deserves. Musically, there wasn't anybody quite like them. They had an ear for a good tune. They formed in 1987. Originally, the two members of Carter, the Unstoppable Sex Machine, were members of a band called Jamie Wednesday, who were booked for a charity gig at London Astoria. It's a prestigious gig for an unknown band, but for some reason most of Jamie Wednesday never turned up, leaving Jim Morrison, not the famous Jim Morrison, but another Jim Morrison, and Les Carter on their own. Pluckily, Jim and Les decided to use some backing tapes and honour the gig as a newly formed duo. It went well, and they made the arrangement permanent and rechristened themselves Jim Bob and Fruit Bat. Fruit Bat's surname, Les Carter, remember, was used within the name of the band, and the Unstoppable Sex Machine bit paid homage to a song they used to sing as part of Jamie Wednesday, Conked Out Sex Machine. They soon developed their own signature sound of pop punk infused with electronic samples, sequencing and drum machines. My introduction to the band was when their second single, Sheriff Fatman, was later included on an ME compilation of singles of the week in 1989. The lyric mixed humour with social comment. It was a put down of immoral slum landlords. And the album 101 Damnations, see, humour again, not Dalmatians, Damnations, 101 Damnations, it had a spotted cover, of course, it was more the same, and was moderately successful. 29 in the, not in the main charts, of course, in the indie charts. But they picked up a big live reputation. Their gigs were frenetic, both on stage, despite the handicap of there only being two of them, and they used tapes a lot to bolster their live sound, which I don't like, but and off it, where there's a lot of moshing and stage diving. This was long before moshing and stage diving were as common as they are now. Their second album, 30 Something, in 1991, is my favourite record of theirs. It began with the crowd chanting, "You fat bastard! You fat bastard!" before launching into the marvellous instrumental, Surfing USM. The fat bastard in question was their MC, John Fat Beast, who was also lighting manager, and he became something of a cult figure by playing up to a chanting and introducing the band almost naked. Anyway, more and more people were liking them, and 30 Something reached number 8, not just in the indie charts, in the national charts. Their single Bloodsport 4 should perhaps have been the song which broke them. It had an important message about racism and bullying in the army, and it looked like being their first hit. Then the Gulf War broke out, and so the song was removed from the BBC playlists, and their chance at going on Top of the Pops was gone. But they did finally make it on Top of Pops play After the Watershed, a song about child abuse. The problem came later when Rolling Stones publishers sued them for using a snippet from Ruby Tuesday. Goodbye, Ruby Tuesday. That little snippet goes into the Carter song as well. So the song is now credited to Morrison, Carter, Jagger, Richards, and rather curiously, Bette Lynch. Note for younger listeners, Bette Lynch is a fictional barmaid who used to be on Coronation Street. So they were now being recognised by a pop audience too. And they performed at the 1991 smash hit Poll Winners Party. Not the kind of thing I normally watch, but a typically rowdy performance ended in them throwing their instruments to the ground. This rather mild imitation of The Who provoked a sarcastic comment from the host, Philip Schofield. I wonder whatever happened to him. Anyway, in response to this, Fruit Bat wrestled Schofield to the ground, and it's become a popular clip on YouTube, especially with Holly Willoughby, who still likes to wind her co-host up. They wanted to achieve the same success abroad, but never really made it abroad the same as in the UK. But they did play Zagreb during the Yugoslavian wars. Brave of them. They had just a couple of minor hits in the USA. In the UK, though, 1992 was the year of peak Carterness. And appropriately enough, they released an album called 1992, The Love Album, reached number 1, and included their only ever top 10 hit, Only Living Boy New Cross. They also headlined Glastonbury that year, although admittedly Glastonbury wasn't as big a deal then as it is now. But they caused controversy at Glastonbury. Bands before them had overrun, so Michael Eavis shortened their set. Words were said, and to cut a long story short, the band were banned from Glastonbury forever. They were getting fed up of success. They wanted to call their 1993 album Commercial Fucking Suicide. They settled for Post-Historic Monsters. But they were trying to be less commercial and more adventurous. It wasn't all that different though, and still sold reasonably well. But their time was almost past. Brishot was happening. Carter were no longer flavour of the month with the indie crowd. Their fifth album, Worry Bomb in 1995, made a relatively lowly number 9. They did adapt, but not successfully. They actually became a proper band, in that they had a proper drummer and a drum machine, and then they became a 6-piece and relied on a live band. Good thing to do. But they also, if you went to see them live, they tried to be too... Well, they dropped their old songs, their old favourites from their live sets. They weren't giving us what we wanted. And their tactic of trying to be less popular did eventually work. They became less popular. They lost their fan base. Disillusioned, they decided to call it a day. Their last studio album, I Blame the Government, Never a Bad Sentiment, was released in January 1998 and got no higher than 1997 in the charts. Their worst seller by some margin. Perhaps that's what they wanted, because they couldn't even be bothered to release any singles to promote it. So that's Carter, Unstoppable Sex Machine. They have reformed their touring since, and they've done odd bits of work on their own, but essentially the glory days of Carter, the Unstoppable Sex Machine, are behind them, but they are well worth a listen. See you next week. Bye.